body systems, they we'll go over about skeletal, muscular, circulatory, nervous system, digestive system. We'll be talking about many of them. Start off in the, these are lists, we're going to say there are 11 human body systems. One we won't really talk about very much, so that's the first one, the integumentary system. Okay. It includes basically our body covering, skin, hair, nails, things like that, which is an important system. You know, it helps keep us waterproof so we don't dry up, helps prevent bacteria from getting into our body, helps regulate temperature, also has sense organs that are important as well. But we're not going to talk much about it, but we will talk about all these others. For each one of these, we'll go through, we'll talk about some of the organs, you have to know some of the parts, talk about what they do, what some disease. Skeletal, muscular, nervous, endocrine, circulatory, lymphatic, guys. Respiratory, digestive, excretory, and reproductive system. But the purpose of all of them, all 11 of those body systems, they all basically help to maintain homeostasis. And that's an important word that you should know. And we've talked about it a little bit before. What is homeostasis? What does that mean? Peter? That's like an example. It's basically, yeah, keeping conditions sort of balanced, keeping the proper conditions in order for the body to function. Now, in order for us to stay alive, we need to have, like we said, a certain body temperature, a certain amount of oxygen in our blood, certain blood pH, certain amounts of energy to get to our cells and so forth. So we have all these different conditions that are important. And these body systems help to maintain those, help us to accomplish those things. And we've talked about the organization of life before. We've seen this a few times. But we'll just review. So a human is organized in sort of different levels. You have a whole person, but if you look a little more closely, you'll see we start off with cells. You could analyze, if you look at a human, you'll find, if you look at it in a microscope, it's made of cells. As you know, cells are the basic unit of life. We are made of trillions of cells. And cells come in all different types. And in humans, cells, groups of cells work together to do a certain job. And we call those clusters, those groups of cells, tissues. Bone is a tissue, muscle is a type of tissue, skin is a type of tissue. And a bunch of these tissues working together form organs. And we have dozens of organs in our body. Your kidneys, your eyes, lungs, heart, brain. These are all organs, or a bunch of tissues that are working together to help perform a certain function. A group of these organs working together form organ systems, and that's what we're focusing on in this unit. We're going to be focusing on the organs and the organ systems. A group of organs that are set up in a way that allows the body to perform some function. And that leads to, obviously, an organism. A complete human is an organism, one entire living thing. So we're going to start today with one of our systems. We'll start with the skeletal system. We'll sort of work together with the skeletal system and muscular system because they're closely related and they link up together. We'll talk about sort of both of them at once. So the skeletal system, obviously our skeleton. What is its function? What does the skeletal system do? There's sort of, you can think about it in 2 ways. Else?
It holds us upright.
Holds us upright, and we might say, people say it helps us move, but it gives our body structure. And what else? There's another important function, certain of these, like up here, rib cage, maybe. Yeah, it also helps to protect organs, helps protect vital organs inside of our body. So I know a bunch of you probably know this from health. How many bones in the human body, Olivia? Well, not. Nick?
206.
206.
Nice.
206 bones in an adult human body. Why did I have to say adult human body?
Is that
Right.
when you're full grown, like after puberty and everything?
Yeah, and so why are there, what's the amount like in an infant or in a young person, Bianca?
More because then they combine together.
Yeah, it's more. Okay, an infant has more bones in their body because they're still developing, and eventually these bones fuse together. For example, the cranium is made of several bones, and they fuse together eventually, but it takes a little while. Okay, and so 206 in an adult. And so the parts of the skeletal system obviously include the bones, and bone is a type of tissue. It's a hard tissue, but it's alive. It's a living tissue made of cells. I think sometimes people think of it as like an exoskeleton of an insect that's sort of formed and then stops growing and it's dead. Bones are not like that. Bones are a living form of tissue. They're made of calcium, so they're very hard tissue. And inside of the bone, what's inside of bones? What do we call it? Bone marrow. Okay, it has bone marrow in the center. And that's another important part of the skeletal system. What does that bone marrow that's in the middle of the bones do? So, you know, bone is just not solid bone in the middle. If you broke a bone in half and you looked inside, you see the center will be filled with a substance called marrow. What does it do, Alex?
It helps it absorb impact.
No, something else. It's actually almost a part of another body system.
Like helps with calcium.
It produces something. The bone marrow produces, no? Cells and white blood cells that are part of our circulatory system are actually produced and made inside of our bones in the bone marrow. And so in these long bones, you know, if you ever, sometimes if you eat, I don't know, some piece of meat and there's like still a bone in it that's cut in half, you see in the middle of that bone there's like a fatty substance, that's bone marrow. People eat it. It's rich in fat and stuff. And that's the marrow of the bone. And sometimes, you know, if a person has a disease, for example, cancer of the blood cells or a disease in which their blood cells are not functioning properly, they actually get a bone marrow transplant, which you may have heard of, in which they take bone marrow from one person and they put it into another person to help their body to make red blood cells or white blood cells properly because of some disease they may have that's not being done. So that's inside of the bones, the bone marrow. All right, so we have the bones of the body, and they're shown in the skeleton here. We'll talk about them in the next slide. But then we also have other parts. These are ligaments and tendons, are what we call connective tissue. They are fibrous, tough, protein-based tissues in our body that help sort of connect things together. And ligaments are connective tissue that connects bone to bone. Now these bones aren't held together on their own. There are ligaments that keep everything in place. And ligaments are especially important in the joints, the areas where you have movement between two bones. If I asked you to name a ligament, there's probably, most of you could name one ligament, I would guess. Which one could you name, Carrie? Yeah, the ACL. We've heard of an ACL is probably if you follow sports or things like that. ACL is a ligament that's found where?
In your leg.
In your knee. That's in the knee. It's part of the knee joint. Your knee joint, this is a diagram of the knee joint itself, and your knee, obviously bends back and forth. It should only bend in one direction, like a hinge. Okay? And there are ligaments in the knee that help hold all of these parts of the knee together, allowing it to bend properly, okay? Allowing you to have stability when you move and when you plant and cut and run off of that knee. But you can damage those ligaments. The ACL, the anterior cruciate ligament, is inside of the knee. It's back in here. Okay, there's other ligaments as well in the knee. But you probably have heard, why have you heard of it?
It's common.
It's one that you hear about people injuring. And so it's just it's one of the ligaments that helps give your knee stability. So the ligaments, that's their job. And all of your joints have ligaments. And if they tear or if they get degraded or stretched out, then that can mean your joint has less stability. Then another type of connective tissue are tendons. So what do tendons do? So ligaments connected bone to bone. Bind those things together. What about tendons? Nick?
Connects muscle to bone?
Yeah, they connect the muscles to the bones. And so this is why we have to talk about the skeletal and muscular system together. Because our muscles, so our bones on their own can't move at all. It's our muscles that cause our bones to move. And they connect to the bones through these tendons. For example, your arm, you have a bicep muscle on the top of your arm if your arm's flat. Okay? And that muscle contracts and squeezes together. And what it does when you contract your bicep, that pulls your hand up towards your head. Okay? And so your bicep muscle connects to these bones in your forearm through these tendons. So when your muscle contracts, it pulls on this tendon, which pulls your arm up. Now, if you can, your Achilles tendon is probably one that you've heard of. Okay, your Achilles tendon is where?
Leg.
In your heel. It's your foot. If you feel the back right above your shoe, where it ends, if you have low top shoes on, that thing you feel in the back of your foot, that's a tendon. It's not a bone. People think it's a bone because it's so hard, but it's not. That's a tendon. That's your Achilles tendon. What does it connect?
Muscle to bone.
But which muscle to which bone?
Your foot bone.
Your heel. It's the bone in your heel is the bone it connects to. Yeah, it connects to your calf muscle. Right? So that connects, and you can feel it as your calf muscle goes down towards your heel, it gets narrow, and that muscle attaches to this tendon. And so as your calf muscle contracts and gets smaller, that pulls on your heel, and that points your toe down. Right? So you have these muscles which they attach by pulling on the bone. The muscles pull on the bones, and they do that through these tendons. So this diagram here shows that. It shows the calf muscle. The calf muscle has two big parts to it on each side, and they connect through this Achilles tendon. Again, that's another, if you injure your Achilles tendon, you have difficulty moving your foot, difficulty running and walking and so on. Okay, the tendons are responsible for moving the bones. This one? That's the calf. That's somebody's calf muscle, the back of their leg. And the white is the Achilles tendon. All right, so let's talk about the bones now. And you do have, so there's 206 bones. The human body you do need to memorize. 14 of them.
They're all right there, they're all labeled. So
They're easy. And probably you already know, I would guess, the name of most of these bones. But we'll go around. So on your diagram here, it's missing in this guy here,
Aw,
but should be here.
it's great.
You might call it the skull, but the words you're going to have to know are the scientific names for these bones. So it's not called the skull. Scientifically, it's called the cranium. And what does the cranium do? What's its purpose?
That's the brain.
Yeah, it protects the brain. Okay, brain obviously is an important organ that should not be damaged, and so the cranium helps to protect the brain. Number 2 is this bone here. You would probably call it your collarbone.
Shoulders.
Okay, just beneath your neck. You can feel it's close to the surface, and the scientific name? It's a clavicle.
Ooh,
And your collarbone is something people frequently, it's one of the bones people frequently fracture. You break your collarbone because if you have a collision, somebody's telling they're skiing and they broke their collarbone because you can run into things. Also, if you have a really hard fall and you land, you like brace yourself with your arms, the force of that can actually break a person's clavicle rather than in their arm bones. But they have to stabilize the muscles of the upper arms connect there to the clavicle. Number 3 right here. Thick
the rib.
bone.
No,
not-
that's the sternum.
Yeah, that breast, it's sometimes called the breastbone. The sternum is thick, very strong bone right in the center of the chest. The ribs connect there to the sternum. What's its purpose?
So your heart doesn't beat out of your chest.
You're on the right track. Not so much it doesn't beat out of your chest, but,
It holds your ribs in place.
well, it does.
Protects the heart.
Yeah, it protects the heart, I would say. So it protects the heart. What else is up here inside of this rib cage up here?
Lungs.
Lungs.
Or your lungs.
So your rib cage and your sternum protect the heart and lungs. Obviously, those are 2 very important organs for you to stay alive. So the sternum and then the ribs. Okay, it's 24 ribs, 12 on each side. And then we get to the arms. And the arms and the legs have similar structure to the way the bones are set up. They both have a larger, thicker upper bone. Okay, so in the arm, what's the name of that bone up here?
Humerus.
Yeah, that's the humerus. Okay, thick upper arm bone's the humerus. In this diagram, number 6, these bones in here, okay, what do we call? There's a whole series of bones here. Well, so you would call probably this whole thing the spinal column. The spinal cord is the bundle of nerve tissue that goes down inside of those bones. Each individual bone is called a vertebrae. There's a whole bunch of them. They're separated by discs of cartilage to help cushion them. They sort of rotate back and forth over each other, and they help protect the spinal cord. But those are the vertebrae. To continue on with the arms, we have one upper arm bone. And then in the forearm is made of 2 bones. Okay, you could feel if you if you put your arm out, and you feel in your forearm as you twist your wrist, you can feel those bones moving and rotating there. You can feel that there's one on each side. Okay, they're called the ulna and the radius. You need to know which is which though. Okay,
Ulna is on the inside.
so well, it depends on which way. If you think about it's the ulna is the one that's on your pinky side. So if you have your arm straight out, the pinky side is the ulna. The radius is this one. Okay? So if you look at this person's hand, this is the radius over here. This is the ulna. And if you see, when you rotate your wrist, okay, you could see it's this radius kind of rotates around the ulna. Okay, you see as this skeleton moves his wrist. So it rotates. So what I tell people to remember is like your thumb can kind of rotate in a circle, and a circle has a radius. So your thumb side is the radius. Okay, and the pinky side, your pinky can't really go in a circle very easily. So that's the straight one, that's the ulna. So pinky side is ulna, thumb side is the radius. So there's two bones there. Obviously they're covered in skin and muscle, nervous tissue. Number 9, these large bones here, that's the pelvis. Okay, connects to our vertebrae, and our legs connect there, helps give us our sort of upright posture. The bottom may call it the tailbone. Okay, at the base of the spine.
That's real?
Yeah,
Tail?
yeah, sacrum, it's called.
Sweet.
The sacrum is the tailbone. It's at the base of the spine. You know, you can bruise it if you ever break it. My daughter once broke her tailbone. It's really painful. She was sliding, and she went down the hill and fell, and then she was crying, and I told her just get up and go back up the hill, keep sliding, and you'll be fine. Turns out she actually broke her tailbone, so I kind of feel bad about
Good
that.
parenting.
Yeah, I know. Hold on. Builds character.
Femur.
Okay, the biggest, the quad is the muscle. The bone
Quad, the legs.
is the femur. Femur is the largest, longest bone in the body. Okay, it's the top bone. Just like it's sort of the equivalent. You have the humerus in the arm. The femur is the upper bone in the leg. It's your thigh bone. Then you have, again, in the lower leg, in your shin area, you have two bones.
Tibia,
Okay. You can't feel them as well. They're in there. The thicker bone, your shin bone, the one you can sort of feel just beneath the skin, okay? That's the tibia,
Oh.
that front bone, just sort of behind it, sort of, off to the side, is what?
Tibia.
They don't rhyme.
Yeah, they do.
It's not tibia and fibia.
It's
It's
fibula.
tibia and fibula. Yes. And then the kneecap. What's the name of the kneecap? The
Patella.
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 Okay.
I have a friend and his name is PJ, and he broke his fibula and his tibia and his tibia.
All three things. Yeah.
No, just the two.
Yeah.
There's fibula, there's tibia, and there's patella.
All right. So those are the bones that you need to know, and you'll need to be able to label them in a diagram when we get to our quiz later this week. Probably on Friday, I'm guessing.
Why do we have the same thing in the two class?
Yeah, it's because it's started to reinforce those things, and it's part of both curriculum. So,
Mr. Russ, I have a question.
okay.
One time, during football, my dad broke his leg, both bones, and for some reason his ankle went like that, and his knee was pointing straight. How did it do that?
I mean, once those bones are broken, if you break your tibia and your fibula, then sort of there's no more stability. And so you could, oh, we have just a couple. Put your notes away because I'm gonna give you just we got a few minutes. I'll quiz
Please,
you on
do it
these
at
ones.
360.
I broke my finger one time, and
It was pretty.
yeah, and I came up and it was crooked. Yeah, it was
Pretty
cool.
girls.
It was pretty cool.
You would have thought it was
Hey, raise your hand if you could tell me
me. No, all
what
of them.
bone is
Cranium.
that.